Need to Impeach and Next Gen America. Shout out to my younger brother, Jeremiah Chapman, who works closely with you. Good man. Uh, you know Jeremiah.
Of
He's
course
great.
I know. Are you
That's your
kidding
man.
me?
Tom Steyer is here, y'all. How are you, Tom?
Absolutely great.
Good to see you.
It's great to be here.
So we were just talking before we went to break about the Florida governor's race and how well Andrew did last night. You're supporting Andrew Gillum, always have.
Endorsed him when he was 4th out of 5. Think he's the probably strongest candidate in the United States of America, running in the most important race in the United States of America.
Yeah. Why is Florida most important, you think?
For a bunch of reasons.
Okay.
First of all, it's the largest purple state in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
It's the third biggest state in terms of population after California and Texas. But those are, people think of California as straight up blue and
Right.
Texas is straight up red. But Florida really is in play.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Second of all, it's almost impossible to draw a presidential map where the Republicans win that doesn't include Florida.
That's true.
So when people talk about all the swing states, there may be several swing states, but there's one critical state, and it's the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally, when we look at that state, we've seen that there's been all the kind of voter suppression and attempts to prevent people from getting to the polls has happened there. You can go back to Bush v. Gore to see that the Republicans have not played it straight in the state of Florida. So if we had a Democratic governor who played it straight up, which of course we would expect Andrew Gillum to do, and then when we talk about the 1.5 million people in Florida who could have their voting rights restored, who've been previously incarcerated, these elections normally swing by about 60,000 votes. And if that's on the ballot, but even if it didn't pass, the governor gets a right to review each one individually and restore their rights.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at a state
Right.
where that's one. So honest to goodness, straight up,
That's a good point.
he also gets to appoint the Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm.
Florida has extreme gerrymandering. If we had a map that was drawn fairly congressionally, that would probably add 7 seats to the Democratic side.
Wow.
We're down by 23 total. That would be 7 out of 23. Boom, just playing it straight with a governor who said, let's not favor either side.
Yeah. Well, no, that's a good point because we talk about down ballot races, and we're coming up on the census, and we drawing a district, so that's critical.
So you've got the Congress.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gigantic change, but I really think, Mark, the big one's the presidency, because I think that they've been cheating there,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that it's been consistent for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And if we just ran a square race in the state of Florida, and if some of the people who've been incarcerated or all the people who've been incarcerated had a right to vote again, then I think this would be a state that would go blue maybe forever.
No, you're right. If everything is fair and equal, we win anyway because we have more now.
It's just huge. It's just huge.
Can I say what you said to me off mic?
Yeah.
About how him winning in Florida could begin the end of the Republican Party?
Look, I think they're on a death spiral.
Yeah,
I know
I
it
agree.
seems crazy to say that because they control about over 2/3 of the governorships and state legislatures. They control the U.S. Congress. They control the U.S. Senate. They control the U.S. presidency. And they control the Supreme Court of the United States. So we are absolutely down. But what we can see is I've loved hearing your callers say vote.
Yeah.
I just love it because there are many more of us. And if we understand what's at stake and our own power together,
Right.
then we can really get to a place where the people of the United States win again. I say there's been a hostile corporate takeover of the United States.
Yeah.
And we have an ability as the people of the United States to undo that if we show up. And if we do, it's just such a dramatic, important, necessary change for people to have their rights respected, have their dignity respected again. I just can't tell you how excited I am at the prospect of a return to, by, and for the people.
But I'm I'm not afraid to embrace that in terms of acknowledging they're on a death spiral. You know, frankly, they were, you know, a heartbeat away from being gone in 2008, to be honest with you. And then some other decisions were made. Oh, well, we have to have the two parties. And, you know, I didn't really agree with all that. Because you know what, Tom? The Democratic Party is several parties in one. That's the multi-party.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's why, and you know, obviously that's a blessing and a curse, because the curse with that is we fight amongst ourselves, right? But you know, it's within the Democratic Party. There's a black party, there's a women's party, there's a Latino party, there's working class party,
there's a mod party,
right, right. So we have multiple parties in one party. We don't need this outlier party in the Republican, right? Extremist,
radical, right-wing, corporatist,
yeah,
racist, misogynist
Thank
party.
you.
We don't need that party in the United States politics.
Only for white men of privilege. I mean, that's really only constituency it's serving right now.
There's one of the truths about the world is that no privileged class has ever given up its advantages voluntarily in the history of the planet.
That doesn't happen.
So if we think we're going to get a fair democracy, we're going to have to go out and insist on it.
Yeah.
Because they're not, whatever they say, they ain't giving it to us.
They're not giving it to us for free.
No.
Well, so what do you think about this? Tom Steyer with us, folks, in studio, and we'll probably have time for a couple of quick calls, 866-99-SIRIUS. And also join our streams. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can see Tom in person on Instagram, Minister with 2 T's. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube make it plain. The punditry now, after all we've heard up to this point, that Democrats have the advantage in the House. Now everybody's saying, oh, the enthusiasm gap is closing and Trump's approval rating. I'm like, I was on TV on Friday and I was on a panel of people talking that. I said, all you all are doom and gloom, and I'm not participating in that. We still have the advantage. We still have the enthusiasm. Trump is trying to make something out of it. But I think the Democrats are going to win the House. And there's the Senate was always a big hill to climb, but it's still a tiny sliver where that could happen.
Look, the pundits haven't been right about anything.
They haven't.
The pollsters haven't been right about everything. The thing that the pundits do that gets my anger going immediately is they always do this false equivalence. And they act as if there's two sides to some of these stories.
Yeah.
And they give credibility to Republicans when they're obviously lying.
Right.
And obviously lying to either to please their corporate sponsors or to inflame their base on something where they're just trying to confuse their base to encourage them to go vote by scaring them. And then they get people act as if that's a normal thing. So what we see on the ground, we are doing the largest youth voter mobilization in American history this year. And we see people incredibly excited. So I hear these pundits saying young people don't care. And I'm sort of wow, if you look at the numbers, for instance.
But they don't, and by the way, they don't invite you on those panels.
No. But
the man who's doing it, why wouldn't they have you come talk about it?
If you look at Florida,
right.
So that's our biggest state. You know, we have 120 paid people and 1,000 volunteers in Florida. We're on 45 campuses, HBCUs, community colleges.
Right.
We saw turnout by youth, depending on the precinct, between 2 times 2014 and 10 times 2014 in the primary.
Right.
They showed up because there was a really strong candidate that got them excited, and they were organized, and it was completely different. Now, will we see that in the general? We don't know, but on the ground, the anecdotal stories that are coming back from the field to us, from the people we work with, is young people are very excited.
Yeah.
And so when I hear pundits who haven't left Washington, D.C., having their pollsters tell us what they think is going on, it's kind of like, okay, let's see what happens. But what we hear from the people on the ground, what young people are telling us is they get it. And there's going to be a dramatic change from 2014.
No, and that's important. And as I was saying, you know, it just disappoints me when people say that, oh, young people aren't engaged, young people aren't interested. You're not saying that. I'm not saying they are.
But, you know, we've asked hundreds of thousands of people between 18 and 35 why they don't vote. and they vote at half the rates of other American citizens.
Mm-hmm.
And their answer is, we don't like the system. We don't believe either party tells us the truth.
Mm-hmm.
We don't believe they're directly addressing the issues that affect our lives. So when I hear that, I don't hear people who are not passionate or informed
Mm-hmm.
or who are, somehow selfish or weak, which is the implication. I hear a very passionate group who feel disappointed, who feel like the democracy itself is not working. And that's a gigantic issue for the United States of America.
Yeah, yeah. So you still feel good about the House too? Democrats winning the House.
Absolutely. Look, our attitude is, of course I think that. It may say more about me. We are going to do our work. We believe that should happen. We believe it will happen. But you know what? We work for 2 weeks and we don't have to discuss it anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody does their job. Everybody shows up. Everybody puts their heads down. We run right through the finish line. And then we talk about what happened.
So, and then there's Tom Steyer was supposed quarter before the hour. There's also, this debate about whether it has helped or hurt, will help or hurt for Democrats during these midterms to bring up impeachment. My take on it is, most are not running on that, but it's hard for it not to come up because voters will bring it up. But that's not, there's this myth that you and me and every Democrat running is only running on that issue. And that's not the case at all.
I find this so funny because I want to start back a couple of steps, Mark, if it's okay with you.
Please.
Look, there are two versions of what's happening in the midterms.
Okay.
There's what I call the inside the Beltway version, and that version goes like this.
Right.
This is a Democrat inside the Beltway version. 45% of Americans vote in a midterm. It swings on the 1% to 2% who can't decide whether they like Trump, can't decide if they approve of Kavanaugh, all the stuff. So we need to cozy up to them, and we can't say anything that they don't like.
Mm.
So in effect, you're talking to the hillbilly elegy folks.
Uh-huh.
And then that's one version. And then there's the version that we subscribe to, which is if 45% of people are voting, 55% aren't.
Right.
How about we go get them?
Go get them.
How about we go to them by telling the truth, by addressing the real issues in the United States, by actually dealing with the facts and the fact that we have a lawless, dangerous president who is absolutely corrupt and refuses to protect us. And if you listen to Andrew Gillum, he is telling the truth straightforwardly on the issues. He's talking about the criminal justice system. He's talking about gun violence. He's talking about healthcare and education. And he's for impeachment overtly. He is going and talking directly about the issues, and people are responding. The idea that we have to be Republican light, we can't offend Republicans.
Right.
Oh my God, don't mention the NRA. It might annoy Republicans. Oh my God, don't mention climate change. It might offend Republicans. And for goodness sakes, don't talk about impeachment. Republicans could be offended.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I care?
But you're right. If you go Republican light, then you're turning off those millennials who say there's no difference.
Exactly. The millennials are telling us no one tells us the truth. And the response is, let's make sure not to tell them the truth.
Yeah. Let's pretend to be something else. Tom Steyer with us, folks. So what about you? Where are you in your plans and process? Obviously, there's speculation about you and what you're thinking about.
Look, we are doing the biggest youth voter mobilization, and we're doing this impeachment. We have over 6 million people. We went to the voter file. Normally, 4 million of those 6 million don't vote in midterms.
Right.
Which that 4 million is 10,000 people per congressional district. So we're all in. We've written over 1.5 million handwritten cards to them, asking them to vote.
Mm-hmm.
If we can turn them out, or half of them, that will swing a ton of congressional seats.
Right.
So we are nose down between now and November 6th. If what we hope happens on November 6th, we're going to be in one place. If you listen to the pundits in Washington, D.C., it's like pick 'em at this point.
Yeah.
So from our standpoint, for me to figure out what is the most impactful thing I can do, I'd like to see where we are.
Right.
Because it could be that we've taken a step where we've really taken a huge step as a group in every way. We can really impact the presidential race this year, as I was saying. We can really impact future congressional races, and we're going to have a good Senate map in 2020. But the opposite could be true too. And the question is, in my opinion, we have to go after these people. This whole idea that if we're polite to them, they'll compromise with us and it'll be the old American way.
Yeah.
No.
That's over.
Did they ever do that one
No.
time with Barack?
No.
One time?
Not one time. Not one time.
In 8 years?
Right. It was frustrating.
Zero for 8 years.
Right.
So and if you listen to what they're doing, is there one time when they've said to the Democrats, we care what you think?
Right.
Not one time in 10 years.
Yeah.
And what they've done, the kinds of things they've done, there is no other side of these questions. We actually have to just go win. And we have to go win, in my opinion, by being direct and honest and straightforward. So there's going to be a real question here. Are we going to go take it to these people in a meaningful way?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
and that's going to be the issue.
Yeah. I think you're right. And obviously there is interest, because I mean that's a conversation too. If the Democrats win, well, what do they do? Will the American people want the Democrats to go forward with further investigation and possibly impeachment? But the people you've been talking to say, hell yeah, don't they?
Look, if you actually ask Democrats, 78% of Democrats want this guy impeached and thrown out of office. 78.
Yeah.
About 12% don't, and 10 don't know. So every time I hear people say the Democrats aren't for impeachment, I'm like, who are the Democrats? I mean, the people who register and vote as Democrats are all for it. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So to me, there is this real question of, we have a dysfunctional federal government. We just do. There is no ability for the two parties to talk to each other. And the Democratic side feels like, oh, if only we went back to the 1980s with Tip O'Neill and the Gipper. And I'm like, no, that was terrible. That was a terrible
Some of us
era.
remember that, right?
Yes,
right.
But that whole point is there is no other side. If you watch Brett Kavanaugh, they all lined up and voted for him.
Yeah, they did.
1 out of 51 didn't vote for him.
Yeah.
And they some of them said some things. If you look at every one of these issues, they say some things and then they vote for it.
So, and that's one of the other things that's come out in this latest poll where they said, they had been saying millennials weren't interested. The new NBC Wall Street Journal poll says actually the opposite. Younger women, educated women, because they were even promoting this notion that Kavanaugh got sort of a bump. I'm like, where? A bump for whom? Because there's no way in the world women, especially millennial women, seeing that are going to be for that.
I mean, Mark, so we did a town hall in Newark on Friday.
Okay.
And it's basically question and answer people, just like your show. It's talking to people about what's on their mind.
Right. 2
different people who, coincidentally in this case, were both African Americans, stood up and said, if it weren't for the Affordable Care Act, I would be dead. Yeah. I would not be here because I couldn't afford the treatment that I needed. So you listen to that. Human beings who are alive because of the Affordable Care Act. And then you see how many times the Republicans tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, and now they're lying and saying we were always there to protect people who had pre-existing conditions. A straight up, brutal lie.
Yeah.
And you sit here and say, can we meet in the middle? Where?
Yeah.
What's the middle between life and death?
Right.
Where's the middle between the fact that the world is changing on a climate basis? It will disproportionately hurt lower income people and people of color, and the denial of it so that fossil fuel companies can make money for a few more years at the expense of what the UN calls unimaginable suffering.
Yeah.
Where's the middle ground on solving a problem and unimaginable suffering?
Yeah. The Tom Steyer with his folks, we're almost out of time. They can't run on a tax cut, obviously. That's a
tax cut. Oh, by the way, it's not a tax cut. The problem is the explosion in services that we need to get rid of.
Yeah.
Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. That stuff's making us bankrupt, Mark.
Yeah.
Can you believe they said that?
Right. And so you got that. They were teasing as if they were now more in favor of treating pre-existing conditions in Democrat when they never have been.
Total lie. A 100% lie.
Yeah, yeah. So, folks, bottom line is, from Tom and me, get out to vote. This is it. Our lives depend on it.
There are many more of us.
That's right.
We can roll these people up. And once we start, we've got to win, and then we've got to win again, and then we've got to win again. We have got to roll these people up and return the power to the people of the United States. These corporations have taken over the country.
If we vote, we win. That's all there is to it. Good to see you, man. Thanks for spending this time with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're a great man. Tom Steyer, folks, Next Gen America. If all minds are clear, it has been made plain.